This is Radio Ukraine International with the weekly program Doing Business, hosted by Rodion Zhiznievsky and produced by Konstantin Lavrentyuk. Doing Business covers current economic developments in and concerning Ukraine and gives topical information as well as immediate and longer-term economic forecasts. It is what we think might give you food for thought and help you see Ukraine through the economic angle. In this program, we will discuss the employment, doing business, and living conditions of Ukrainians in Japan. We'll consider various aspects of the social life of our citizens, as well as opportunities for them to find well-paid jobs there. Globalization and huge differences in financial rewards for doing the same kind of work have led to a powerful wave of migration around the world. Ukraine is also part of these processes. The high level of Ukrainians' qualifications and training and the low level of salaries in this country have forced many economically active Ukrainians to seek employment abroad. Moreover, while the European labor markets are already well known, those in remoter or less developed countries haven't been sufficiently explored yet. Today we will talk about employment opportunities for Ukrainians in Japan. The internal structure of Japan is very different from European countries, and it is not so easy to get used to these features. The Japanese labor market also has its own nuances. Japan is a highly developed country, and is among the world leaders in many sectors of economy and science. Life in the land of the rising sun looks very attractive from the outside, and that, in principle, corresponds to reality. Nevertheless, Japan is a special country and not all foreigners manage to fit into its way of life. Besides, there are circumstances that make life uncomfortable, to say the least. Japan is constantly hit and rocked by earthquakes. That is one of the main disadvantages of living in Japan. Life in Japan is very expensive, but at the same time, the living standards in the country are among the highest in the world, and it is also one of the safest countries in terms of crime rate. The Japanese, a large nation on a small terrain, value and cherish their personal living space. It is very difficult for Europeans to get used to living in tiny rooms. For instance, a standard 4-room apartment occupies a total area of 50 square meters, but is priced exorbitantly. You're listening to Radio Ukraine's weekly program Doing Business. To most of those who have never been to Japan, the country seems to be a huge green area of skyscrapers, cozy gardens, and beautiful temples. In fact, houses in Japan are mostly low-rise, and they look quite plain, especially in provinces. There are almost no sidewalks in Japanese cities. Instead, the carriageway is simply separated from the pedestrian zone by white line. There are very few bike lanes, so cyclists can be seen anywhere and there are quite many. Public transportation in Japan is astronomically expensive. Tourists have little choice but to use public transport. It is almost impossible for a foreigner to rent a car, since only national driving licenses are valid in the country. The Japanese population is currently estimated at 127 million, and foreigners, mostly Korean and Chinese, make up less than 1.5% of that number. There are Ukrainians as well. Most of them are scientists, students, diplomatic staff, sales representatives, and programmers, and almost all of these live there with their families. Legal immigrants are generally tolerated in Japan, but all newcomers, including Ukrainians, need to be prepared for being treated as total strangers. It should be admitted that for all the politeness of the Japanese, discrimination towards other nationals is present there even at the official level. This primarily concerns salaries. Problems often arise when it comes to renting or buying an apartment. Many real estate agencies even refuse to deal with foreign nationals. Despite all that, Ukrainian immigrants shouldn't complain too much. The attitude towards Afro-Americans, Koreans, Chinese, and other foreign nationals is much worse. You're listening to Radio Ukraine's weekly program Doing Business. The Japanese are extremely law-abiding. Everyone lives by rules and everything is regulated. They have instructions for all cases. Before coming to Japan, one needs to learn the basic established rules in order to avoid problems. The Japanese are bad at learning foreign languages. All signs on streets, on menus and in announcements are in Japanese only. Coming to the country for work, it's simply vital to speak at least a little Japanese, so one can navigate the streets and explain to locals if something happens. In 2000, the Japanese government began a transition to Western labor market standards. New government policies provide more employment opportunities to foreigners. There are vacancies in Japan for Ukrainians now, and over time their number is likely to increase. Before applying for a work visa, one has to obtain a so-called certificate of residence status. The employer issues the certificate at the Japanese Immigration Service. Programmers are in great demand in Japan, a country of innovative technology and progress. But it's not enough for a job seeker to have the certified IT knowledge, skills and qualification. A good command of Japanese and English is also required. I asked Ivan from Cracker Company and his wife Irina, who are living and working in Tokyo, about the peculiarities of life and work of programmers in that country. How did it all start? How did you get the idea to work in Japan? Was it a conscious choice?
I had a business trip in summer 2019. We had a lot of job and we spent a lot of time in office. Time to time, our management asked us to stay at night. So everybody leaves the office, but we are still working. Actually, I showed myself like a good leader. They are offering me to stay in Japan. And I thought about it a little, maybe a few days, and talked with my family, talked with my girlfriend, and they agreed that it's a good opportunity to live in such country, and then I agreed on the proposal.
How did your wife react to your suggestion?
Yes, I remember I asked her, I have a proposition to stay in Japan for 1 year. What do you think about? And she told me, okay, no problem. It was her first reaction, but as I understand, she did not realize all the problems at the time. And then after maybe a few days, she had a lot of questions for me.
How did you solve your housing problem? How does that normally happen in Japan?
Renting an apartment in Japan if you don't have a local guarantor, by that I mean that the company provides them the guarantee, is almost unreal. And it is also extremely expensive. If you don't have $8,000-$10,000, you won't find it for sure. And even in the winter, it is very cold. Most of the apartments are built from monolithic concrete without insulation. We only have one air condition, but it is full not enough, so we bought an oil heater.
Tokyo is a very big city. Which area do you live in? How comfortable is your apartment? And how much do you pay for it? Are there additional housing costs?
Company provided for us, and they also book us the hotel for 1 month just to stay this period of time when we can't do anything. And they support us all the time.
How expensive is living in Japan in general? How much does a family normally spend on food and transport?
Of course, it depends on the area where you plan to live. And actually, it's really expensive to rent apartments. I know the guys who came here by themselves, so the company did not pay for apartments. And I heard they rent the apartments for maybe $700. Something like this, or maybe 800. But it's even not apartments, this is room.
The most expensive thing for me is food. Everything is delicious and beautiful, but extremely expensive. For example, one apple could cost you $2. It is a big misconception that Japanese people eat sushi every day. We eat basically the same as in Ukraine. Meat, potato, sushi dumplings, soup, porridge, meat mostly chicken. It is not very expensive. Borscht is expensive, and a piece of salo will cost about $10.
By the way, do you have a car or do you use public transport?
Actually, living in Japan, it's really very expensive, and usually we use subway. For example, to get to work, I spent 100 hryvnias, one-way ticket, and it take me 15 minutes. So it's quite near, maybe 6 kilometers, maybe 7, I don't know, but it's not very long distance. But the public transport, it's quite very good, and you don't need your own car. You can use public transport everywhere. So I think that your own car, it's not very unnecessary, and it will be expensive too, because the parking are very expensive. Oh, you can buy the car for cheap. Maybe it will cost you. Actually, you can buy a good car for $700. But yeah, because of parking, you should pay maybe 100 hryvnias for 3 hours.
You're listening to Radio Ukraine's weekly program, Doing Business. The Japanese are believed to be workaholics. Many even work all their life at one and the same enterprise. Is it hard to get used to their working rhythm?
I think they really work a lot, but they get good money for it. It's traditional. It's okay for them to work a lot. Also, it depends on company and depends on the person or other issues, maybe. For Japan, actually, it's normal to start working in one company and then work here till the end of their career. I work here a lot. Maybe that's a problem. I think I worked more than Japanese people because I came here to work a lot. It's normal, and actually that is why I'm here. And just because we had this crazy project, and especially because of Japanese our clients, normal working day here right now maybe take me 10 or 12 hours a day, and I can work for 15 hours, maybe 1 week or even more. In any time you can open the chat and you will see that someone is working, someone is asking something, and so I think yes, it's true.
Will you tell us about your company and your job there?
It's an American company. I'm here as a technical lead of support system. Like we had some team, we had a lot of parts of teams, and I'm working application analyst team. We support Rakuten employees because here we had telecommunication project. We support problems which customer face it. Even we support problems which Rakuten employees face it with customers.
Are there many workers from other countries? How many are from Ukraine?
This project, we have maybe 10 or 12 people from Ukraine. Mostly it's employees from India and a lot of Russian people and from Belarus also in this project. If you are in Japan, you should work more than when you're in Ukraine. And of course, the company paid you more and you should work more.
How do you communicate with one another? Is the Japanese language a must?
Of course, because of it's even not about Japanese or not Japanese, it's because of language skills. If you know Japanese language, yeah, you can find good job. If you don't know Japanese language, of course you will not find something. And even if you know English or German or Spanish, it doesn't matter for them. You should know Japanese, and only in this case you will get normal salary. You will have more money in Japanese company in the same position than in international company.
If you don't know Japanese, you have many restrictions everywhere. In many streets, all signs, goods, and descriptions for them are in Japanese. You may not be allowed to enter a club or restaurant, or you can be refused to get medical service.
Which level is required in your company?
For example, we are looking for a person who will know Japanese, maybe on upper intermediate level or even more, because we need communication with customer. And of course, I think at least intermediate you should have. It depends also on position and what you are looking for. It depends on your skills. If you are good in everything, in language and in your professional skills, you will get good salary.
How do you and your wife usually spend your weekends?
We are trying to travel, not very far because it's expensive, but we are trying to go somewhere for a couple of days or for 1 day. We go to the ocean, also we can go to the mountains. It's very, very beautiful nature here.
There are a lot of myths that cause inconvenience, and you can face visit everywhere, in street, in hospital, and pubs.
You're listening to Radio Ukraine's weekly program, Doing Business. How do you buy groceries, and how much does one average shopping cost you? Is your salary enough for a decent living?
To conclude a contract with a mobile operator, you need to have a Visa or MasterCard and a resident card. The contract works for at least 2 years, and when you connect a specific tariff, you can get the latest iPhone for free or other cool device. As for me, my company provides me Samsung with SIM card in it, but we are not going to buy a card for my husband, and we don't plan to do it. To open a bank account, you need to have a resident card. Hopefully I have it. But an ordinary bank account does not provide you with Visa or MasterCard, only cash card. You cannot pay using only bank system. If you want to get a card, you need to wait for 2 or 3 months. For example, I still don't have Visa, so far I'm used to cash.
Is there any opportunity to save money?
In the evening, it's really good discounts in stores. Maybe it's up to 50% for some goods. We usually go to the shops in the evening. For example, if you want to buy bananas, we can go early in the morning and they will cost 100% price. The same bananas in the evening will cost us half price. For example, sushi could cost in the morning 100 yen, $10. And in the evening it will cost you maybe $5 or $6, something like this. With furniture, you will not have the problems here in Japan. You can just walk somewhere and you will find a lot of furniture just in the street for utilization. A lot of people just leave the furniture on the street for utilization. It's now a practice, and you should pay for utilization. You buy some stickers, and they put the stickers on the furniture and put it on the street, yes, and it's quite expensive too. And of course, it's easier to find something for free. And in some sites like OLX in our country, they have the same here in Japanese, but it's quite, everything is more cheaper than in Ukraine. A lot of goods for free.
How do you communicate with locals in everyday life?
Especially when you live in Tokyo, it will be difficult to communicate with someone in English. Most of people, they don't know English language and they don't need it. Usually we use Google Translate to communicate with Japanese people. It's okay for them because they are very friendly and they try to help you. They can't show you that they don't know something. If they don't know something, they will try to help you because they should do it. Even if they don't have a time. Yeah, you can just stop someone and ask him how to get somewhere. And a lot of people will help you. It's normal for them to help. It's because of their culture.
The Japanese people are very close people and keep their privacy too much. I know guys who have been living in Japanese for more than 5 years and they don't have any Japanese friends. But they say that if a Japanese let you because his or her friends, then it is good before all period of life. Perhaps this is because of the fact that the Japanese live mainly just for working. Most of them have no hobbies or interests. It is even possible to go with them to pub and drink some alcohol and during this moment to communicate with them, but nothing does beyond that. Japanese don't like foreigners and consider them too noisy and dirty. There are even special real estate agencies that work only with visitors and they are looking for landlords who are willing to take this risk.
Because of different culture and the Japanese people, they're very closed and it's very hard to communicate with them. And, stay in Japan is mostly loneless. You feel yourself alone because of language and because of specific and because of culture. It's really hard to find someone. I know the guy who lived here for about 6 years and he told that he liked Japan, he enjoyed to live there, but it's hard also to him to communicate with Japanese people. And he just waiting for someone from post-Soviet Union countries to communicate, to go somewhere. So yes, it was difficult in social plan. It was difficult because they eat different food. They don't like chocolate, for example. And for my wife, it was a real problem to find something like sweet. Yeah, there's a lot of social problems which we have. And most of them because of communication.
How has the coronavirus pandemic affected your work and everyday life?
They don't have the same as we have in Ukraine, and because of government. I heard that someone criticized the government that because they don't have some strict rules because of coronavirus, but actually it depends on you. Almost all the Japanese, they use mask everywhere, even at home. I heard that a lot of Japanese people, they use mask even at home with their relatives. But everything is open. You can use cafe, you can use shops, you can go everywhere you want. Nothing was closed, and nothing is closed now. So it's not the same as in Ukraine we have. Public transport is open, everything is still open. Yeah, actually they are planning Olympic Games in 2021. So yeah, they are also prepared.
How long do you plan to stay in Japan?
It's a difficult question. It depends on a lot of things, I think. Maybe it depends of if company will provide me a new contract, of course. Even if they provide me a new contract, I will think about it if I want to stay here or no. No, because of psychological state of my mind and of my soul. And you know, the Japan, it's not a country where I want to live all my life. It's quite difficult to live here. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a really good question. Time to time, I think that it's great to spend maybe a few years here, but some period of time I want to leave it and I want to return to Ukraine or maybe to travel to another country.
And the last question, what would you like to advise young Ukrainians who dream of living for Japan or some other exotic country?
Of course, it should be Japanese language for sure. And maybe they should spend some time for their mentality. And they need to think if they really want it. And because it's a really different country and a different culture. You need to prepare yourself mentality. You need to prepare your physical condition of your soul. And people here are very closed. You will not find friends here. It will be only your colleague. That's all.
We thank Ivan and his wife Irina for their time, and we wish them sound health and prosperity in the faraway country. You're listening to Radio Ukraine's weekly program, Doing Business. Needless to say that Japan is one of the most developed countries with high living standards. At the same time, it's a rather expensive country in terms of prices, and it's rather difficult to adapt to its peculiar lifestyle. Most foreigners have failed to organically integrate with the Japanese society, but their experience has helped them to gain valuable knowledge and skills, as well as material and non-material benefits. Plus, of course, unforgettable impressions of the unique land of the rising sun. That was Radio Ukraine's weekly program Doing Business, hosted by Rodion Zhiznievsky and produced by Konstantin Lavrenchuk.